Welcome, everyone, to episode 8 of Reese Rambles, the official podcast of the Control-Alt-Reese YouTube channel. That's right, this is the official podcast now. I've done 8 episodes, so I think it's finally time to make that commitment. Yay! Go me. And, of course, it's the weekend after the Easter weekend, which I'm sure seems like a distant memory now. Here in the UK, we get 4 days off, typically, because the Good Friday and the Easter Monday are both what we call bank holidays, national holidays. And if you're self-employed like me, you can also choose to take those off if you want, or you can choose to work. In my case, I had those off and felt guilty about it, like I always do. But I did do something productive, and that's kind of what I want to talk about in this ramble. And we had some lovely weather from the Friday to the Sunday. If you're a long-time viewer of the channel, you'll probably be familiar with what we call the orangery in a very sort of tongue-in-cheek way, which is like a lean-to conservatory / extension / summer house type area that we've got on the side of our house. And I spent the Friday sorting that out, tidying it all up and cleaning it all up nicely, ready for the summer, because it becomes a bit of a dumping ground in the winter, as you can imagine. And then we had some friends over on the Saturday night and had a very jolly time planning an upcoming holiday, which should be a lot of fun. And yeah, there's another thing that I was kind of doing in the background and also carried on during the day on the Sunday and also sort of on the Monday morning as well. And that's connected to my research for my videos. And I wanted to talk a little bit about my kind of research process for my YouTube videos. I know there are lots of channels out there that'll do kind of the very bare minimum. Just for entertainment, go onto Wikipedia and type in the name of whatever it is they want to make a video about and kind of recite stuff from there. I find with a lot of Atari history stuff, a lot of the stuff on Wikipedia is just wrong. It ends up being recycled and going around in circles until it kind of becomes gospel. And so I like to go to original sources. And that's what I've been doing. So this is unconnected to the Atari PC video that I've been working on. I have been working on part 2. I've got loads of footage of software and stuff running on that PC. And I had a few very lucky breaks, actually. I had a lot of stuff that I wasn't expecting to work that just kind of worked first time. Like the boxes of discs that came with it are all in fantastic condition. The hard drive is dying, but I did manage to sort of have a good look through there and find out what was on there. And I also managed to track down Gem, which is the original desktop environment that would have run on that PC, and kind of show what that was all about as well. Spoilers. I probably should have marked that with a spoiler tag at the beginning, shouldn't I? But anyway, that video is coming up. I don't know if it'll be out by the time you're listening to this. It may well be out on my Patreon for early access. But either way, that's all happening. That's all in process. As far as the shorts are concerned, the last one went out yesterday of the 10 that I had ready. I'm not sure. I'll see if I can kind of throw some together today, maybe. But as far as that's concerned, they've done reasonably well, and they've actually brought in some new subscribers, and they have kind of bumped up the kind of background view count of my channel. I wasn't expecting massive numbers or anything like that, but the whole thing was intended as an experiment. So I think what I'll do is maybe try to put 4 more together and just see if I can do like 2 weeks of straight shorts every day in a row, and then kind of go back and look at the data from that and kind of reassess it and decide whether it's worth the effort to kind of carry on releasing those on a semi-regular basis. Whether I do one, it would be relatively easy, and when I'm in the process of making a video, to kind of plan to do a short as well on the same subject. And of course, that might give the channel a bit of a boost, and it's not that much extra work once I'm obviously in the process of making those videos. Going back to the older ones and trying to sort of remember what they were about and kind of pick out the best bits of footage and stuff is a little bit more complicated. Although it's not too bad, but yeah, I kind of need to get into the flow of getting those finished. But anyway, this isn't about a shorts update. This is about what I did during the Easter weekend, or at least one of my kind of small Atari-related projects. And as I say, it's related to research for videos. So I use the Wayback Machine quite a lot. Now, if you're not familiar with the Wayback Machine, it's part of the Internet Archive. And the Internet Archive's mission is basically to archive everything on the internet. I think they started in the early 2000s, and they scrape websites, and you can upload old software and that kind of stuff, and books, and there's all sorts of there's literally pretty much anything you could possibly want on there. And because they kind of position themselves as kind of a non-profit archival service for sort of historical research, they're fairly immune to sort of copyright issues and stuff. Although I did hear they were talking about on This Week in Retro that the Internet Archive have kind of come under some scrutiny because apparently during lockdown they were lending out books. So they have like a digital library service, which is all sort of official and licensed and above board. And you can rent the books out digitally. And obviously, once they expire, once your allotted rental time is up, the books expire and you don't have access to them anymore. And basically, the way that they're licensed is that they can only lend out so many books kind of concurrently, just like a real library. Obviously, they can only physically lend out however many copies they physically have. But apparently in 2020, during lockdown, they were kind of caught. Well, I don't know if they were caught, actually. I think they actually made quite a big thing about it. Basically lending out more books than they had the rights to lend out, because they said, well, libraries, physical brick and mortar libraries are closed. People can't go and rent out books. So we're just going to, release all of the, the restrictions and just let people read as many books as they like. And apparently the big publishers didn't take kindly to that, and they're now in the process of suing them. But the bit that I'm going to talk about isn't really connected to that. It's called the Wayback Machine, and I use it quite a lot when I do my research for my videos. So what the Wayback Machine does is it crawls websites and it takes mirrors of them. So it takes like one-to-one copies of the content of the website at a given moment in time. And then basically you can type the website URL into the Wayback Machine, and it will give you every version of that website that it has in its database, going back to when it first discovered it, so to speak. And it's really good for kind of early 2000s kind of stuff that's gone offline and is no longer available. It does have its issues. Obviously, as a kind of normal user browsing a website, you do kind of make your way through it quite slowly and click on stuff and follow links and that kind of stuff. But the way that it scrapes it kind of grabs everything all at once. I think sometimes things time out and it ends up with like missing images and missing style sheets. And there's stuff where obviously it has to kind of fix the URLs to make things work. And it doesn't fix them. There's like this, it runs in like an iframe and there's a layer on top of it and all that kind of stuff that kind of intercepts the stuff and redirects it. And it's all very complicated, and it generally works. It generally works well. But you always find when you're browsing sites on there that there are bits missing. So what I've taken to doing, I have a bit of an archive of my own on my website, and they're websites that I've used in the course of my research for certain videos. Like there's one about Wacky Wheels on there, which was some guy's like fan site that he'd made. It's like a college project. Really, really sort of in-depth and useful resource. It was linked from Apogee. The kind of the original developer of the game. It was linked from their website as like an official resource of kind of useful information, and it had gone offline forever, and there was no reference to it anywhere, and I kind of dug it out of the Wayback Machine. And so the way that I work with these things is that I use a script, which I think it's written in Ruby, but it's available on GitHub, and it's called the Wayback Machine Downloader, and it's a command line tool that you run. And basically, you type in Wayback Machine Downloader, then the URL of the website that you want, and then you can optionally. There's a few different options, but generally the only one that I use is the timestamp. So you can say I want the version of this website from the 30th of June 2016 or whatever, and it will get that particular snapshot of the website, no matter what state it's in. And then I kind of start from there, and I'll go through it and sort of manually check all of the pages, change all of the links. Obviously, if there's absolute links in there that kind of link to the full URL of the website and the page, I change those to relative links. So obviously, it doesn't matter what kind of URL that ultimately ends up being hosted on. I run a local web server, so I am a web developer in my day job, and I use a local copy of the Apache web server, which I run those websites on. And basically just have a bit of fun kind of poking around, going through the pages, finding broken images, broken links. I load the page with the console up and look for like the red errors, JavaScript errors and missing image, missing bits of media and that kind of stuff. And then use that very same Wayback Machine downloader to kind of download those files. And it sounds like a very kind of long-winded, convoluted process, but it's actually kind of semi-automated, and it's actually quite fun to kind of discover this stuff and kind of piece it back together. There may be easier ways to do it. There may be a way to fully automate it. But I think having that human element, and particularly as I am a web developer in my day job, and as I kind of started tinkering with HTML and stuff like that in the late 90s, And a lot of these websites are kind of like going back to those early days when I first learnt this stuff, table-based layouts and all of that kind of stuff, Microsoft front page. And it's quite fun for me to just sort of kind of go back and play with that kind of stuff again, just kind of, like I say, piecing stuff back together. And I like to keep it all as original and untainted as possible, original errors and layout issues and all, because I think it's important to kind of preserve this stuff in its original form. Now, the reason I talk about all of this is because there's a website I've been meaning to do, or that I've actually looked at it once in the past and downloaded it and kind of gave up on it. But over the Easter weekend, I was researching something and it came up again. And that website is the Atari Museum, atarimuseum.com. Now, if you're not familiar with the Atari Museum, it was around for years. So it started off as atari-history.com. And I think it started in kind of 2000-ish, maybe even earlier than that. And it was run by a chap called Curt Vendel. Now, Curt I'll get to that shortly. Curt was a really big figure in the kind of Atari historical community. So his company, Legacy Engineering, designed the Atari Flashback console, which was, if like your NES Mini and the PlayStation Classic and those kind of TV mini consoles that run all the old games. Well, it was Atari that kind of started that, really, back in 2004. I think Atari was owned by Hasbro, or no, was it Infogrames? I don't know. That whole era of Atari kind of passed me by. But whoever happened to own the Atari name at the time decided that they wanted to make some money selling people all those old games again, and they came up with this concept of a mini console that plugged into the TV, and it was styled after the 7800, and it had a load of classic Atari games on it. I'm actually sat here looking at my original Flashback. I have one that's boxed, that's in quite nice original condition, that I bought years ago because I wanted to make a YouTube video about it and just kind of talk about the history of that and about Curt's company, Legacy Engineering, and all of that side of things as well, because it's quite a fascinating story. But he also worked quite closely with Atari on quite a few different sort of historical legacy projects and did some contract work for them. And he was also he was very big in kind of the collecting scene, particularly prototypes. He had a lot of contacts internally at Atari that had old prototypes and stuff. And obviously, that Atari kind of being big in the 70s, a lot of their kind of original engineers were getting to sort of retirement age and maybe even sort of passing on and stuff. And he was kind of taking custody of a lot of this, like printed material and prototypes and even like software and things like that. And attempting to kind of document it all and preserve it and put it out there. So, very much a kind of kindred spirit in that respect. And he ran the Atari Historical Society, atarihistory.com. And that's later, sort of around I think it was the mid-2000s, 2008-ish, let's say, that morphed into atarimuseum.com. Now, as far as I can tell, he wasn't a web developer. He sort of managed the site in front page. And it was very sort of cobbled together, but a lot of kind of love and care and attention went into it, and there was a lot of imagination went into like all of the different sections. So there were sections for all the different ranges of 8-bit machines, and the ST, the TT, the Falcon. All of the games consoles had their own section, and there was like relevant downloads of sort of development documentation and ROM dumps and all that kind of stuff. Not as in games, but operating systems and kind of early prototype operating systems and stuff, and system software and development environments. And he kind of made it his life's mission to preserve all of this stuff and make it available. And also, as part of that kind of mission, he also wrote a book called Business is Fun, which he co-authored with Marty Goldberg. And in that book, they go back and they interview quite a few sort of early Atari employees, including Ted Dabney, who was kind of a co-founder of, well, he was co-founder of Atari alongside Nolan Bushnell. And really, really sort of great collection of first-hand interviews and information and that kind of stuff. And of course, like I say, because we're talking about a company from the 70s, it is really important to kind of talk to those people and get those first-hand stories and things while those people are still around to get those stories. And they did a fantastic job in doing that. I can highly recommend that book, by the way. You can tell that it's written by sort of passionate, enthusiastic engineers. it's very much from that point of view. So it's a really good read, and it's not overly sort of polished or sanitized either. So it's a really sort of raw first hand account, and I really enjoyed that. I'll link that down. I'll link that in the usual places. It's called Atari Inc. Business is Fun. A fantastic book. And yeah, so that's kind of the story of Curt Vendel. And I did chat with him a few times on Facebook. I nearly bought an Atari Jaguar prototype from him at one point. This was years and years ago. This was like early 2000s. I can't remember why that fell apart. I think I was a poor student and I just didn't have the money that he was asking for. So I missed out on that one. But there you go. You can't win them all. And so we come to the sad part of the story and the importance of kind of preserving this stuff and what I've been up to regarding the Wayback Machine and all of that side of things. And if you're familiar with Curt's story, you probably know where this is going. But yeah, very sadly, he passed away very suddenly in 2020. He was only 53 years old, and he was sort of in the middle of a load of really big and interesting projects, Atari history projects. And I think they'd just kind of embarked on kind of redesigning the website and launching a whole new Atari museum, him and a few other people in the community, which I can see there is an AtariMuseum.com, which is kind of, there's a few bits of content on there, but it's kind of a shadow of its former self. And there's a lot of placeholder content and stuff like that on there as well. And it's kind of been that way for quite a while. So I'm not really sure what the situation is with that. But I wanted to go through and kind of check out the old Atari Museum for some stuff that I've been researching on, some prototypes and things. And I grabbed a copy from the Wayback Machine, as I do, and of course there were loads of broken links on there, URLs that needed fixing. There was some stuff that was actually originally broken, like the backgrounds on some of the pages. You could tell there were collections of pages that were sort of based around the same theme. And there would be a few of them where he hadn't changed the URL to point to the live version of the background image rather than the version on his local hard disk. So it would be like background equals file ://c, and so on and so forth. Like I say, he wasn't a professional web developer, and it was very much a kind of passion and a hobby project. So I thought I'd go through and tidy all of that up and kind of create my own local mirror of that I can use for research and stuff. And it ended up being quite a big undertaking. Of course, when Curt very sadly passed away in, I think it was August 2020, it seems he'd only paid for it a year's worth of hosting on the AtariMuseum.com domain. And from what it appears, no one else had access to that. No one had access to his hosting or his domain renewal or anything like that. And a year on, the website actually went offline and the domain came up for renewal. And it's now owned by some kind of crypto gambling spam rubbish, which is very sad. It's a very sad fate indeed for what was once this amazing resource for kind of the whole Atari community. And I can't find a mirror, a complete mirror that's, other than what's on the Wayback Machine. Nobody seems to have sort of mirrored it and made available the original site in its original form. And that's why I kind of took it upon myself to do this, really, because it seemed a real shame. And I want to make this publicly available as well. That's kind of what I've been leading up to with this whole ramble. But it is quite a sensitive thing, and I know it was kind of predominantly a one-man operation. I know he had some input from some other people in the community as well, but predominantly it was all in his name and kind of his thing. And of course, unfortunately, he's not around to ask for permission anymore. But there is a mirror of AtariHistory.com, his previous website. That's on the ftp.pigwad.net FTP server, along with a load of other awesome Atari stuff. Thankfully, that's still around. But yeah, so I don't want to kind of be seen to be taking credit for it or anything like that, other than a very sort of short introductory paragraph on the homepage just explaining why the website's back. And I think obviously I'm not going to touch any of the actual content or change any of it. A lot of the issues with the content are stuff to do with front page itself. Having used it myself many years ago, I know that it kind of puts line breaks all over the place, and I found a couple of links where he'd actually gone in, a link was wrong, or he changed the structure of the site and moved something into a different folder. And he'd gone in and kind of changed the link, but actually what it had done is kind of put an anchor tag within the anchor tag, and it was acting strangely in Firefox. So there were one or two places where I fixed that. But I don't think that detracts from the actual sort of content or the structure or kind of the look and feel of the site at all. Just means that it's going to work for people, which I think is very important. I've done all of this in GitHub as well. So I got the original version that I mirrored, and I committed that to GitHub. And then obviously subsequent changes I've kind of gone through. It created a load of, I think Front Page creates a load of weird folders and files and stuff that are part of that structure that are completely unnecessary. Deleted those, but yet again, it's all in GitHub, so all the history is there. And if people really wanted to look at those, not that they do anything, they just take up space and clutter things up. Then of course that's all still there as well. And the only kind of minor issue with GitHub, like I said right at the beginning of this ramble, that there were a lot of files on there, like development software and ROM dumps and that kind of stuff. And the maximum file size for GitHub is 100 meg. Now, unfortunately, there are 2 files on the site which are over 100 meg, and they're literally just over. One of them is all of the information to do with the 1400 XL prototype, and the other one is the Jaguar development files. And they're both zip files that are just over 100 meg. So at the moment, I'm trying to decide what to do with those, because I want the whole thing to be complete and original. But unfortunately, I also want it all to be in GitHub. So the whole history is there. And currently, I can't do that. I've tried extracting the zip files and kind of recompressing them with the kind of highest compression I can get. And that's not brought them back under that file size limit. But I'm sure I'll work out what to do. It may be with those that I have to kind of split them up, whether I'd need to add kind of an explanation that this part's been changed or what. I'm not sure, but ultimately, I think as long as that data's still there and still preserved, then it kind of maintains the kind of the original intent of the website. But yeah, so that's kind of what I've been up to and what I've been working on. Obviously, that's time that could have been spent working on videos, I know, but I wanted to use this thing for my own purposes, for researching stuff. I don't just want to go on what's kind of publicly available, because, like I say, Curt did a lot of proper first-hand, interviews and research, and he actually owned all of the technical documents and the actual physical prototypes. So what better source to use for kind of talking about Atari history going forward? And if I'm going to have that, then why it seems very selfish to kind of keep it to myself, and when it could be out there educating other people. So that's where it stands with that. A couple of other very minor bits to kind of sort out before that can be made public, but I'm hoping that'll be done by the time you're listening to this, and if so, it will be linked in the usual places. I hope the community understand where I'm coming from with this. Like I say, I haven't asked anyone for permission or kind of discussed it with anyone. Sometimes you just kind of have to forge ahead with these things, and hope that people understand where you're coming from. So I think that's all there is for this ramble. If you've noticed some dodgy bits of editing in this one, it's because I keep having coughing fits. I think I feel another one coming on. Not sure if it's being outside over the Easter weekend, or if it's hay fever related or what. But I think before the next one comes, I will sign off at that. And thank you very much for listening. Don't forget to subscribe to Control-Alt-Reese, and look out for YouTube videos and the next ramble this time next week. Cool. Bye.